My best friend slept with my wife for 14 months. My parents found out 3 months before I did. They all decided together, in my parents' dining room over a Sunday roast, that I didn't need to know. I'm a structural engineer. I spend my days calculating load capacity, stress tolerance, the exact point at which a structure fails. You'd think that would make me good at predicting collapse. It doesn't. You never see it coming from the inside. It was a Wednesday in February. Calgary in February is the kind of cold that makes you grateful for the drive home, just to sit in a warm car for a few extra minutes. I stopped at a Tim Hortons on Macleod Trail, got a large double-double, drove the rest of the way in peace. When I pulled into the driveway, my wife's car was running but parked. She'd been sitting in it. I noticed because the exhaust was still going. She came inside right after me, sat down at the kitchen table and didn't take her coat off. I need to tell you something. I set down my coffee, waited. She'd been seeing my best friend for over a year. She was sorry. She thought she'd end it but she hadn't and now she couldn't. And then, and this is the part where the floor fell through, she said my parents knew. Her voice didn't even change when she said it. Same register, same volume. They've known since November. It was February. They thought it was better to let things settle before saying anything. I think I nodded. I'm not sure. What I remember is how quiet it was. No music playing, no TV in the background. Just the furnace kicking on and her voice in the middle of it. I called my mother. My wife hovered near the doorway. My mother picked up on the second ring. Oh, sweetheart, I was just thinking about you. When I said I knew, there was a pause so calculated it could only be deliberate. Then she shifted into a voice I recognized from childhood. The one she used when she was managing a situation. We were trying to protect you. We needed to figure out the right way to. Who was in that room, Mom? She listed them. My father, my wife, my best friend. His mother apparently, because she and my mother played tennis together, and it had become necessary to loop her in. Not me, I said. We were going to tell you. We just needed. I hung up. My wife asked what I was going to do. I looked at her the way you look at a building you've just been told has a compromised foundation. You don't argue with the physics. You just figure out what to salvage. Nothing, I said. I went to the bedroom and pulled my old hiking pack down from the shelf. Packed methodically. Clothes, laptop, my passport, the external hard drive with my work files, chargers, my grandfather's watch from the dresser drawer. Basics. Things that were actually mine. She followed me room to room. We can talk about this. You're in shock. Please yell at me. Do something. I zipped the pack. Say something, she said. Anything. I said. I'll be in touch through a lawyer. I walked out. Sen. I drove for a while. Not anywhere specific. Just east on Glenmore, then north, then I pulled into a Canadian Tire parking lot and sat there with the engine running. My phone was going insane in the cup holder. My mother, my father, my best friend. I stared at that one for a long time, my wife. Then my mother again. My father again. 17 missed calls in 20 minutes. I opened my contacts, started at the top. My best friend. Block my wife, block my mother, block my father, block his mother, block. I went through every name that connected to that house, that dining room, that November decision. Aunts, cousins I'd known my whole life, old family friends who'd have heard by now and would feel obligated to mediate. Block, block, block. I called my carrier. Changed my number. The woman on the phone asked if there was anything else she could help me with. And I said no and meant it. I checked into a hotel on Macleod Trail. Paid with my personal card, not the joint one. That was the first financial move. The rest came in the morning. I took the first bus downtown at 7:30. Went directly to my bank. Withdrew half of the joint account and transferred it to a new individual TFSA I opened on the spot. Half was what the law allowed, and half was what I was taking. No more, no less. Clean. The advisor asked if my spouse was aware, and I said we were separating. She printed the forms. I signed them. I had my pay rerouted to the new account that afternoon. HR next. Removed my wife from my group benefits plan. Alberta Health covers the basics regardless, but she'd been on my extended for dental and prescriptions. That ended that day. I called a family lawyer in Eau Claire, the kind with a waiting room that cost more to decorate than most people make in a year. She listened to the whole situation without interrupting, and when I finished, she said, "What do you want?" Divorce. Clean. My house. I bought it 2 years before we married. She's not on title. No ongoing support obligations because she has her own income. Everything handled through your office. What about your best friend? He's not a party to the divorce. He's just someone I used to know. She made notes. We set a retainer. I wired the funds from the parking lot. That night I sat in the hotel room and deleted things. Facebook, not deactivated, deleted. The account removal request takes 30 days and I submitted it anyway. Instagram, gone. My personal email, the one tied to all of them. I changed the password to a string of characters I didn't bother memorizing, removed the recovery options, and locked myself out permanently. Opened a new account. Different format. Typed my own address wrong twice before getting it right. I applied for an internal transfer within my firm that same week. The Edmonton office had an opening on a major infrastructure project. By the time my lawyer filed the divorce petition, 15 days later, I had an offer letter for a position starting in 6 weeks. My lawyer called on a Tuesday. Process server had delivered the papers that morning. Divorce petition filed. 30-day vacate notice on the marital home. Legally in my name alone, no joint title, her claim limited to value accumulated during the marriage, which my lawyer had already calculated and was preparing to address. She's asking if you'll meet once, just to talk. No. Your mother sent a handwritten letter to my office. Shred it. Sig. Your best friend called the main line. He says he wants to explain. There's nothing to explain. Block the number and document the call. She was quiet for a moment. You're very certain about this? I am. I drove to Edmonton the following Sunday. The Trans-Canada in winter is flat and pale, and goes on longer than you think it will. I passed a billboard somewhere outside of Red Deer. A family resort, everyone laughing around a bonfire, make memories that last in some looping script. I had the cruise control, set to 110. And I didn't take my foot off it. Edmonton in March is not pretty. It's functional. The river valley is frozen, the streets are gray with salt, and everyone is tired of winter in a particular way that creates a kind of solidarity. I found an apartment near White Avenue within a week. Furnished, short-term lease. I didn't need much. Turns out you don't accumulate that many things that are genuinely yours. My new project lead asked why I'd transferred from Calgary. I said I needed a change of scenery, and he nodded and handed me a site assessment report. People are practical in this field. They move on. I found a therapist the following spring, not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to stay ahead of it. She had a dry sense of humor, and didn't try to walk me back toward anything. Do you miss them? She asked in our third session. I think about them the way I think about an old site I worked on. It existed. I was part of it. It's not my problem anymore. She wrote something down. That's either very healthy or very defended. We'll figure out which. It turned out to be healthy. We kept meeting anyway. It was Miles who kept me loosely connected to what was happening back in Calgary. We'd gone to U of A together. Not close enough to be caught in the fallout, distant enough to be useful. He texted my new number about 4 months after I moved. I don't know how he got it. I didn't ask. He said he'd run into my ex-wife and my best friend at a Saddle Dome event. They'd looked uncomfortable with each other. Mutual friends were keeping their distance. I didn't respond, but I didn't block him either. He texted again in the fall. My mother was calling anyone who'd listen, asking if they'd heard from me. My father had lost weight. My best friend and my ex-wife had apparently stopped seeing each other by August. No official announcement, just in absence where they used to be. I read those messages the way you read weather warnings for a city you don't live in anymore. Noted, not relevant. I was at a coffee shop on White Avenue one afternoon. It was November, already dark by 4:30, when I met Isla. She was at the table beside mine having a quiet argument with her laptop about a municipal zoning proposal. An urban planner. She noticed my blueprints spread across the table and asked if I was with the city. We ended up talking for 2 hours. She was originally from Victoria. Had moved to Edmonton for a contract that kept getting extended. Third date, she asked why I'd transferred from Calgary so suddenly. I told her everything. She listened the whole way through. When I finished, she didn't try to fix anything or offer a counter-argument. She said, "Do you think you'll ever go back to any of it?" No. She thought about that for a moment. Then good. Some doors should stay closed. We kept seeing each other. Miles emailed in January. My best friend had lost his position. Something to do with a conduct complaint. That apparently had nothing to do with my ex-wife. But everything to do with a pattern people had been looking past for years. My ex-wife had moved into a smaller rental in Inglewood. Mutual friends were sorting themselves out, most of them landing on the side of not taking a side. Which in practice meant they drifted away from everyone involved. I got promoted in the spring. Senior project lead, 3 infrastructure assessments running simultaneously. My supervisor said I'd brought a focus to the Edmonton office that was rare. I thanked Tim and went back to work. That spring I transferred to Victoria. Isla had been offered a permanent position with the Capital Regional District and was moving back. I requested the Pacific Regional office same week. My firm said yes. We drove out together in her car, a rented trailer behind us, 3 days through the Rockies and down through BC. It was the most beautiful commute I have ever made. Victoria is wet and green, and nothing like Calgary. That was deliberate. Miles emailed once more in the summer. My mother had hired someone to locate me. A private investigator apparently. She'd narrowed it to British Columbia. My lawyer filed a cease and desist within 48 hours. And made it clear that continued efforts would result in a formal harassment application under the Protection Against Family Violence Act. This will make reconciliation essentially impossible, my lawyer said. It already is. She just hasn't accepted that yet. I authorized the restraining order application if they escalated further. Isla asked that night if the situation worried me. I said no. She said, what if they show up at the door? I close it. That's the whole plan. She believed me because it was true. We got engaged in October. No elaborate gesture. We were hiking in East Sook Regional Park, somewhere along the coastal bluff trail with the Strait of Juan de Fuca below us, and I stopped and said I wanted to build a real life with her. The kind that was actually ours, and asked if she was in. She said yes before I finished the sentence. Her family drove over from the mainland for dinner that weekend. They were warm, a little overwhelming, and entirely genuine. Her mother made too much food. Her father made jokes about finally getting me locked down. After they left, Isla asked if I wanted to tell my family. I don't have family to tell, I said. I have you, and now yours, if they'll have me. She didn't push. She understood that some things don't need more words. We married the following April. Small ceremony at a venue in the Saanich Peninsula, rolling hills. The ocean visible in the distance. Gary Oaks just coming back into leaf. Her family, my colleagues. Friends I'd made in Edmonton and Victoria. 43 people total. Everyone there wanted to be there. No obligation, no performance, no empty seat that needed an explanation. Her father walked her down the aisle. Her mother cried the right kind of tears. At the reception, one of her cousins asked about my family and I said simply, we're estranged, permanently. He nodded and the conversation moved on. Canadians are good at that. Accepting a clean statement and not making it strange. Miles sent one final message a few months after the wedding. He said he'd heard through someone still in Calgary. My mother had stopped calling. My father had retired early for health reasons. My best friend was working somewhere out of province. No one was certain where. My ex-wife had moved twice in 2 years. The last lease had ended badly. She was dating but nothing had stuck. People knew the story. It followed her. I'm done passing this along, Miles wrote. Figured you'd want the final update. Take care of yourself. I read it once. Didn't respond, didn't block him either. He'd been decent through all of it, and I respected that. I told Isla that night what he'd said. She asked how I felt. I thought about it. Actually sat with the question instead of deflecting it. Clear, I said. The same way I've felt since February. She leaned against me. Not even a little angry. No, they made a choice. I made mine. We've all been living with them. I had a journal entry I'd written around the 1-year mark. I found it recently while unpacking the last of the boxes we'd never gotten around to opening. It said, people think leaving is giving up. It isn't. Staying in a structure that's been compromised, pretending it holds, watching the cracks spread, that's giving up. Leaving is just knowing when something can't be saved. And walking out before it comes down. I still think that's right. What surprised me, genuinely surprised me, was how little of my mind they occupied once I stopped letting them in. In those first weeks I'd braced for grief, for obsessive thought, for something seismic. What came instead was a strange quiet. Like a background noise you've tuned out so long you stop hearing it. And then one day, you realize it's gone. Somewhere in Calgary, my mother still had my old number saved in her phone. A number that hasn't worked in years. I don't know if she calls it. I don't think about it much. What I think about is the morning light through our kitchen window in Victoria. Isla's coffee cup on the counter beside mine. The drive up the Malahat. On a clear morning when you can see the full stretch of the strait below. The project report due Thursday. The reservation I made for our anniversary. At the place on Fort Street we'd been meaning to try. I built something real. I live in it every day. It holds. That's not a small thing. That's everything.